Hello BookTube! Emmy Walker here to do my May wrap-up and June TBR. For my May wrap-up, you might notice that I read pretty much nothing that I anticipated reading, except for maybe one of them. I know I was gonna do the series books, and for a couple of them I did finish some series. I don't know, I can't even remember if they were on my original May TBR, but either way, I went completely off my promised TBR. But I read books, and that's really all that matters, so let's get started. So the first book I finished was The Runaway King, which is the second book in the Ascendance trilogy by Jennifer Nielsen. And then I finished The Shadow Throne, also by Jennifer Nielsen, and this was the third book in the Ascendance trilogy. Both of these books were really good. I really enjoyed them. Not as much as I enjoyed the first one. The first one was so, I don't know, captivating, I guess. And these ones were good, but just not as good as the first one. The next book I finished was Animal Farm by George Orwell. This was an interesting book. I'm sure I mentioned it before. I'm just glad to have finished it. It was a really quick read. I mean, it was, I think, 100 pages, if that, and yeah. I finally finished this book! Finally! I started it in September! This is A Dance with Dragons by George R.R. Martin, and I tend to go slow through his books anyway because there's so much to absorb, but then I get to the point where I've forgotten what happens, and then I have to kind of go slower through it, so I'm thinking, what the heck is happening? So a lot of it is just all my fault, but I finally finished it! And I'm so angry that I finished it because I don't want to wait. And George R.R. Martin, I'm gonna die before you come out with the next book. It's not fair. And he pushed it back. What are you doing? You're publishing other books. Stop it. Stop writing other books and focus on these books. People want A Song of Ice and Fire. Nobody wants your Ice Dragon book, guy. Next up is The Raven Boys by Maggie Stiefvater. I really enjoyed this book. I'm really excited to get into The Dream Thieves. This book had just a general creepiness to it, like kind of like a, I don't know, you're always waiting for something to kind of happen. There's just, I don't know, I feel like it was just the general color of blue, dark blue when I was reading. I don't know if that's because of the cover or not, but, and she also had a really fun way of writing certain things. She would say, I had to write this one down, but she says only one of her eyebrows was paying attention. Instead of saying she raised her eyebrow, like it's just such a cute little way of saying something that is perfectly boring. Instead of saying she arched her eyebrow, which is in every single book, she says only one of her eyebrows is paying attention. I mean, that's just really cute. Then I finished The Sin Eater's Daughter by Melinda Salisbury, and I did enjoy this book. I also did a full review on this one, so if you want to take a look at that, it's actually was up, I think, a couple of videos ago, so it's not too far away. Then I finished Book 4 in the Cirque du Freak series. This is Vampire Mountain by Darren Shan. Then I finished with my son, James and the Giant Peach by Roald Dahl. And this was a very fun book. I'm glad to have finally read it. It was a little darker than I thought it would be, especially in the beginning, but it was definitely worth the read. Up next, I finished Everything Everything by Nicola Yoon. And that was, I got that from NetGalley. And it was such a sweet little book. I gave it 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. It kind of sucked me in. I didn't expect it to suck me in the way that it did. Wasn't really surprising, the ending, but I enjoyed the journey all the same. And then I just finished today Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab. This actually took longer to read than I would have normally expected, but I really loved her writing style and I loved the story. And while you would expect someone, if you love it so much, why didn't you fly through it? Because I don't reread books, as I said before, I didn't want to miss anything. I wanted to soak it all up this first time around since I didn't think I'd ever pick it up again. But it was really good, I really enjoyed it, and I highly recommend it. And I cannot wait for the next book to come out, though who knows when that's going to happen. Then for my June TBR, I'm participating in the hashtag TBR Takedown, which was started by Shannon over at Learning Lights. I've been seeing a lot of other booktubers do this, and it sounds really fun. And it has 5 challenges, which you don't necessarily have to do. It's more about getting your TBR down, which is what all reading is about, really. So I thought that I would, do the challenges to make it more fun. The first challenge is to read a book that's been on your TBR for over a year, and for that one, it's going to be Room with a View by E.M. Forrester. I have had this book on my shelf for much longer than a year, but I really need to read it. Challenge 2 is to read a sequel still sitting on your TBR, and for this one it's going to be The Wicked Will Rise by Danielle Page. I really enjoyed the first one, and this one, the second one's so much smaller. I don't know if this is only going to be a duology. I'm not really sure, but either way, I'm excited. Challenge 3 is to read the first book in a series that's been on your TBR shelf, and for this one I'm going to pick book 1 in the Merlin series. That's The Lost Years by T.A. Barron. I went through a period where I was really obsessed with anything Arthurian, and this was one of those things that I picked up, and now I'm going to finally read it. Challenge 4 is to read a book out of your comfort zone, and I'm going to kind of couple the two books. Actually, I'm going to use A Room with a View by E.M. Forster again for the first one and this fourth one. The fiction, just general fiction for me, is something I want to read more, but I don't read more because I don't know, I feel like I like living in the fantasy world, and if it's too realistic, I find myself kind of okay, I guess this is alright. Challenge 5 is to read a book from your most recent book haul, and for this one I'm going to take it from the book haul I did about a week or so ago, and not the one I'm going to film here in about 10 minutes, because technically I haven't hauled it yet. So yeah, whatever. And that's going to be These Broken Stars by Amy Kaufman and Megan Spooner. Then the final book in my June TBR, which is not part of the TBR Takedown, is going to be Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo. And so I'm being a little bit stingy on my TBR this month, just because I've been feeling kind of slumpy and I don't want to, you know, put too big of a TBR and then, you know, end up being nothing. So this way I at least know that I can finish these, what, 4 books. And then if I read more, then I'll be happy. If I read less, you know, so it goes. So those are all the books I have for you this video. Let me know down below if you've read any of those books, or if you plan to join me with any of the books that I'm going to be reading for June. Otherwise, don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. See you later, BookTube! Then I finished Animal Farm by James Orwell? George's unknown brother. This is a strange brother. He used to melt spoons. I know, pretty interesting factoid. Challenge 2 is to read a bars by Amy Kaufman. Holy fudge bars!